Hi, Kristen.
Connor, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, just testing.
You're good.
Evening, everybody.
Tim.
Yeah.
Connor.
Okay. Looks like Clay said he's not going to be able to make it tonight, so we will be able to get started here in a moment. Looks like we have everybody but him. Right.
So, Connor, who's going to take minutes? Should I take minutes then?
That would be incredibly helpful to me. So I'm not typing this whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
That is fine. I can do that. Let me.
okay. I will still take some notes just for my own sake, but yeah, we'll combine. Cool. Great. Well, I guess since everybody's here, we can get rolling. It's my first meeting as chair, so hopefully this doesn't go off the rails within just a couple of minutes. All right, so looks like we have everybody, let's see, but Clay, and today's agenda is relatively straightforward. We have Kristen Galbraith on with from the Park County side of the bridge, the Fleshman Creek Bridge project. She's going to present. She'll be the first item here, and then we will go over and talk to priorities for 2022. We also have some other updates. Looks like Clay's not going to be able to share some of the updates he has, but and a recommendation on the Trails and Active Transportation Plan. So hoping Matthew would show up tonight so that we could ask some questions of him, but we'll see if he shows up or not. Otherwise, we will discuss that and we can take next steps accordingly. Great. So I guess first thing on the agenda tonight would be the approval of the minutes. Those were sent out as an attachment. These were my first take at minutes as chair, so hopefully nothing too wild and crazy, but if there's any edits, fire away now and we'll mark those down.
I'll make a motion to approve it. I thought that they were very thorough, so I appreciate you putting them together.
Okay.
My minutes are nothing but thorough. If there's anything they are, that is it. All right, do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All right, cool. I guess all in favor? Aye.
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 All against? Great. Looks like we are unanimously approved with those minutes for January 26th. I also got a note that my next round of minutes needs to include the Zoom agenda, so that, or the Zoom link, so that will be included next time for future reference, just so you know. Okay, so we'll get into our new business here. Kristen, I will give you the floor. Do you need to share your screen or anything? And you are muted, just as a heads up.
Excellent. No, just because I found out about this last week, I don't really have anything to share because the PERs are widely available on our Park County website. I know you had talked about both the Yellowstone pedestrian bridge and the Fleshman Creek connector bridge, but I only saw Fleshman Creek on the agenda. So I don't know if you want me to talk about both or just the Fleshman Creek connector.
Yeah, Fleshman was the only one listed, but happy to discuss both.
Okay, so we were able to, with a combined effort between the county, city, and LHC, come up with the funding to develop the Yellowstone River Pedestrian Bridge, PER, and then the county on its own developed the Fleshman Creek Connector Bridge with our funding. So both of those were completed about the same time. We were able to have public meetings because they were pretty close in proximity with the same types of priorities. And in those PERs that are posted on the website, and I think you sent them out to everybody, the comments should be included in those. The appendices tend to get very large, so on the website you have to pull those appendices up individually. But we had some robust conversations and lots of, probably 90% good public comment on pedestrian bridges, and as per usual with government projects, about 10% not so good. So you can all see in those PERs what those cost estimates are. Our engineers generally give us at least 3 alternatives or 4, one of them being not building a bridge at all. So that's the most cost effective, of course. But there are different strategies for each of those bridges. The Yellowstone Pedestrian Bridge would link City of Livingston land at the Moja Dog Park over across the river to Park County land. There was a bridge there originally. It was washed out at one point, then it was rebuilt, and then it was burnt down. So they never rebuilt it. So there has been a history of transportation use in that area, and it would be a great linkage, not only for the hospital, but lots of recreationists that use that area. I drive there probably 4 times a week to the other side of the river, so I can walk my dogs up the big hill and out onto state land. So that's a great project. It requires a lot more funding because we're trying to make it free span, so there would be no pylons in the river. So that really isn't on our radar right now. The Fleshman Creek Connector Bridge is a little bit more palatable because it's less expensive, but we would have to get city, I guess, cooperation on that project because the bridge connects from the city dog park over to a city public trail easement that's been sitting there for about 20 years that most people just didn't know about. And it's a 20-foot wide trail easement that leads right out to the very end of Lewis Street. So, so that's what I know. I work for the county on many different grants, so this is not as if I'm focusing on these projects as my #1 priority because we have a lot of other things going on, but definitely this has the current county commissioners' favor at this time, and commissions shift, so that's always a thought process to be thinking about. We've got Steve Caldwell, who will be running again this year, and then I know that Bill Berg and Clint Tinsley will not run again. They are done with their terms, so we will have a big shift in 2.5 years. And that sometimes presents problems with projects. So what else do you want to know?
Yeah, happy to open it up to the committee for questions here. Anything that you guys wanted to ask Kristen while she's on the line?
Kristen, hi. Thank you for all your hard work on this. I know that it's been a haul, a lot of it behind the scenes. So really appreciate your efforts. And I was really interested in and happy to see the O Street connector piece come along. And just for orientation, like, the footbridge that had been in there that was just sort of like voluntarily put in there, is that about the location, that I'm talking about? Is that about where this is or not? Okay.
No, that was that's down by M Street, and that was kind of, put in by community members, and it was, I think, taken away by the city because it wasn't really a legal bridge. And it kind of connected to the Girl Scout property, which has been a kind of an issue on that trail use and their property trespassing. So if you go to the very end of Lewis, there's it's probably between what would be Q and R streets. There's an old cinder block building. It's a city building for Quentin would probably know. I don't know what it's used for, but right beside it is a 20-foot easement that goes all the way to Fleshman Creek. So the bridge would connect that trail to the park. So it would provide pretty good connection with the park, the O Street connector. Like you could make a pretty big loop in that area with the use of a public easement that was put in place in, I think, 2002.
Okay, so it's a little bit around the horn from the original.
Yep. Mhm.
And so,
Not too far.
yeah. So, what does it look like in terms of prospects for federal or state grant funding for either one of these projects? Is there? I mean, you obviously have done some looking into it. Do you think that there's opportunities, or is one brighter than the other? I'd assuming that Fleshman may be a little bit easier just because it's less expensive.
Yes. And of course, the grant cycle for those types of projects, not all of them, but most of the grant opportunities are coming due this month or next month. So our plan isn't to apply for it this year. But yeah, there are probably 5 different opportunities. And we don't know what we might see from the infrastructure bill, which could help us as well. Included in that, if we make it a collaborative city county project and build the bridge and then, make the trail easement area into it has to be ADA accessible. I've worked on those projects in Bighorn County, and people automatically, some of our public commenters at those meetings were mad because it would be asphalt and we'd tear down all the trees and take out all the riparian habitat, and that's not the intent. You work with the state agencies on making sure that you've got all of that riparian area stabilized and make sure it stays how it is, and we remove as few trees as we need to, and we might have to meander a path, but you can put in a certain size of gravel that is ADA acceptable. You don't have to asphalt a trail. So it's a certain size that wheelchair wheels can move across. So as far as, aesthetics, it looks better, especially since that area down there is pretty wooded. It's a pretty area. So yeah, I think the next step, if people are interested in this and there's a priority, then we have to work with the city commission to see if they're interested in doing probably a collaborative project with the city county combined for the city bridge or the city trail county bridge. County is responsible for bridges in the city.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Those include footbridges.
I have a couple questions. And Connor, is it possible to bring up the attachment on Fleshman Creek? And maybe even just that map that shows that area. So I do have a couple of questions. One is just first of all, what we're being asked to do on this, and second, what kind of communication there's been with city staff, and if they and what they've said about this project.
I don't think, it's kind of up to the county. Won't move forward and put a bridge in, even if it was grant funded, unless the trail's in place, because that would be the bridge to pretty much nowhere. Even though the trail easement's there, it's going to be much more sellable if there's a trail on the other side that leads out to Lewis, and then that Lewis loop heads up to the O connector. So we're not really moving forward. We're happy to have the plans in place, because in the grant writing world, you have to have those plans put together to make a clear case to those funders. So those are ready. The only communication we've had with city staff is that they were concerned about the Fleshman Creek bridge, probably because the neighbors probably saw the engineers down there measuring or something, and they weren't paying for it, so they were wondering what that was all about. A few of them indicated they did not know about that trail easement. I don't know how much people or the city officials know about that old easement, but I think it's now widely known But I haven't heard much more about it. They didn't want to contribute to the funding of the PER, which was fine. The county just funded that, so.
So going back to what this committee's been asked, would it ultimately be that we're recommending that the city develop that trail?
I think if you want to see a connector bridge put in place, that's probably what would have to happen, because we don't, the county doesn't have influence on the city on, what trails they're going to put at the forefront, of prioritization. So, but that's kind of up to you guys. And I know you're talking about your priorities during this meeting. So this might not be a prioritization, which is fine because we have that PER in place. And even if it happens in a couple years, if we have to pay the engineers, for 20 hours to revamp it toward current cost, that's fine. But at least we have the beef of the plan right in front of us and are ready to go, especially if new opportunities from the infrastructure bill head our way.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You made a comment when you were talking about the Yellowstone Bridge that it's like not as much of a priority. Is that just like you got the kind of like this one where you got the PER done and it's now just a matter of the right timing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd get much more interest and excitement over the Yellowstone pedestrian bridge, as well as some naysayers, just because of the multiple connection benefits that bridge would have. And it's slated in the PER as just a pedestrian bridge. We were approached by the city manager at one time about making it a vehicular pedestrian bridge, but that's not really our interest because we have, a bridge a half a mile down the river that serves that purpose. So, yeah, so we would, depending on where the funding comes from, like if I see great opportunities, there might be 2 applications going in for 2 different PED bridges. The Yellowstone River one is just a bigger beast with, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers involved, and it's a big deal.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen, I about on the Yellowstone Bridge, it sounds like you've made the decision that you wouldn't move forward unless it was a single span, which I think is very smart. And second, that you wouldn't move forward if I saw in the pro forma that we got that there was one notion of allowing emergency vehicles. And in my mind, that just leads down the road to having it be vehicles, period. Because when we're no longer around, and I worry about that, and I worry about the implications for that piece of ground back there when that happens, and so I'm assuming that nothing moves forward with those two pieces in it, and then the second thing I was going to say is because it is a $6 million project ish, and that. That plus all the other process that you'd have to go through because it's the Yellowstone would take a bunch of time and effort. I'm wondering if you could if there's an opportunity to build the case on the other side of the bridge and look at the opportunities there and this has always been in the back of my mind, I'm sure plenty of other people too, but like a Main Street to the mountains kind of trail there where you could in theory even without the bridge have a connection from the trailhead east of the bridge with some hard work all the way up to public lands. I think it's a cool vision and it's something that people can get excited about, and if you spend some time working on that and maturing that in the right way, it could certainly lead to momentum that could, land you funding and support for the bridge.
Yeah, and definitely we've had that in our wheelhouse for many years. Selfishly, do I want people over there? No, because I think it's my big playground on state land when I'm over there with my dogs. But we are working with, and you guys probably know this, I can't think of the group name, but there is a city county owned parcel on the other side of the river above Watson's. And they're going to do, I can't think of the kind of biking, but it would have a trail system. And that's the first of the kind of the land areas that are being considered for more outdoor recreation of different levels and varieties. And then there has been talk about future trail systems into that state section up there as well. When I apply for flat funding, which is a good resource for Park County, and we're always pretty successful because we're so, we're almost 60% public lands in our county. We always show on that map, like, if you did have a pedestrian bridge across the Yellowstone, you can get to the Livingston Peak Trailhead, cut down Seuss Creek, come down East River Road over to the trail by Old Yellowstone Trail and get back into Livingston. I mean, there's a huge variety of opportunities, and I think applications will sit well with funders. It's just putting together a funding package that large. For what would be probably a 3-year project between permitting and funding and then building and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm all for these opportunities on the other side, and we are kind of starting that right now, which is kind of exciting. I think it's with the Livingston bike. I don't know what the name is. There's too many things going on right now.
Livingston Bike Club.
Livingston Bike Club. That is who. Yeah, Sarah knows about it. She's on. She can tell you. So that should move forward pretty quickly here.
Awesome.
Good.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. So from a committee side, would it behoove us to develop the trail and the connection trail and the easement in conjunction with a bridge? Or I think I'm also hearing that developing a trail might be easier, low-hanging fruit with the intention of then applying for the bridge. Just from your experience, Kristen, is it better to wrap those up into one project or to do them separately? I just think like doing them separately, it's the trail that kind of go to know how much they need to speak to one another for that to be successful. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do think, well, for one, city-county collaboration on any projects, that come into funders is evaluated more highly, to see that, partnership between jurisdictions is pretty incredible. But I also think that I think we'd do better if we had a city-county project that was developing that trail, keeping the natural aesthetics, of course, with the bridge combined, so that you have a bridge that connects to an already established park, an already very busy area, and that also leads to a trail that's leading to a pretty busy O Street connector trail. The easement, for all of you that haven't seen it, it's probably 4 blocks walk from that end of that at Lewis to the O Street connector. So it's pretty close. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I would, in my perfect world, I would love to do a combo city-county grant application for funding to pursue the trail bridge project.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, anyone else?
I mean, just as a comment, our trail network really lacks loops, connectivity. Our system is very short segments that are predominantly an out and back. And even psychologically, having a loop, if you're a trail runner or walker, it just opens up so many possibilities. So I think the excitement for this potential is really amazing. So thanks, Kristen, for coming to present. Really appreciate it.
Sure. And you guys are always welcome to email me. Usually always in the office, but as I have updates on those things, I'm happy to chime in every other month if you have questions as a group. Because there's a lot that goes on in the county that the city wouldn't know about just because the city's busy with their projects.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kristen.
Sure.
yeah, appreciate that. Any final questions for her? Okay. Awesome. Well,
I'll
Kristen,
probably
thanks for-
skip off, Connor, if that's okay. And I'll see
You're
you
what?
all. I'll probably head out,
Oh.
make some dinner, and we'll see you all later.
Totally
Thank
fine.
you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
All right, so that is that. Yeah, so it sounds like there's some future work to be done on that one, but that was great. And then next up on the agenda, we have 2022 priorities. I just wanted to start these up. It is February. Last year, I was looking through kind of what our process was. Jean had very kindly put together a very lovely list of projects from the city. The city had kind of prioritized the funding that they were going to offer and had like this, the rating system was like 1, 2, and 3 or something. You might remember that better than I do, but so last year we did have to wait until the city had or we chose to wait till the city had its like funding and priority list for the year put together. And I don't know when that was released exactly. Jean, do you remember?
It came from, I simply asked Shannon what his priorities were for the upcoming year, and he sent back an email with a few things listed. So our priority list included a look back at the things that had been the priority for the previous year, the city's priority, and then any obligations we had.
Okay, cool. So it's a combination of all those. So I guess I just wanted to bring that up for today just to see. And then we also had a special meeting, I guess, too. So we had that meeting, brought it up in a first meeting in March, had a special meeting, and then finalized priorities in April at our normal April meeting. So was just kind of curious if there were any thoughts on that process, if we wanted to change anything for this year. Sarah, you had talked about revisiting some of the strategic plan items possibly, and if we wanted to wrap up a review of any of those items. I think we're like halfway through that 4-year plan that was put together or so. So just kind of wanted to get a discussion rolling about how we wanted to approach these priorities. And then between now and the next meeting, I can start putting stuff together and getting items ready for discussion, whether that's at our next normal meeting or if we want to do a special meeting like we did last year, because this is a pretty big topic and probably one meeting might not be enough to work it in. So, but wanted to get the ball rolling and see if there are any thoughts on that.
I'm wondering, Connor, so it sounds like the city does not necessarily set our agenda, but certainly the things that the city prioritizes are things that we would want to prioritize working to help get finished, right? But we're not exclusively getting marching orders from the city. It's sort of like yes and kind of thing. Is that?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So the city will approach us and ask us for different things. Obviously, like throughout the year, we had some stuff put on our agenda last year. Some of the bigger items, like the flagpole, turned into quite a few meetings worth of commenting and feedback. So there are lots of moments like that where they'll come to us and ask us for a recommendation to the commission. And then there's a lot of work that we do on our own that is maybe might line up with some of the work they're doing, but isn't necessarily a directive from the city to do. And something like we proposed last year, the logo, for example, we spent quite a bit of time working on that, but that was not necessarily the city telling us to go get a logo.
Right. Well, I guess, one of the things that I'm wondering then is based on, I mean, just thinking about sort of strategic planning for the year and thinking about like, maybe what are some things that we have momentum on that you all through your work built up last year that we want to, that we could close out and keep going. And I think, like, for example, like the logo is then what's next with that. And so like the whole basket of things. So we've got the basket of things around, well, there's some things that we're going to do because the city asked to do it. Then there's some things that we started last year that we've got momentum towards, and then that's another section. And then there's the kind of what do we know we're not going to finish next year, but we have an opportunity to get started on and make some headway on. And so that's potentially another bucket. And then maybe the fourth bucket is like, what are the harebrained ideas that we might have that may even be further out, that might be more visionary, and that we might be excited about just starting that process next year. So I just sort of think like that in terms of like, what are those four different buckets? And I do think that that framework might lead itself to a more comprehensive conversation with some prep work beforehand, and us maybe having a more comprehensive agenda around it. So anyways.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I am gonna jump on that idea of four buckets to organize us, and then we can kind of go from there. But I know that, so the logo has been a big thing. I feel like we're so close to like moving forward and finishing that up, right? We just need to like actually put the print on the signs and put them out. So that could be a great project and low hanging fruit. We also have this. Yes.
We'll discuss the logo.
Okay.
In a little bit.
And then we have great momentum on the HRDC trail, right?
Mhm.
We
It's
have
out of our
like,
hands, please.
and then the Reservoir Park project feels like, I wish it was, we had great momentum, but I'm not quite sure what's happening next. So maybe that goes in that third bucket of, we aren't gonna finish it in the next year, but we need to keep working on it. And I don't know if we have any ideas right now of what the city needs. I mean, that typically will come, like, they'll be like, you need to discuss this next week kind of situation, right?
Well, we do have some idea, because remember, both the strategic plan and in the finance document that the city looked at last year and adopted, they go out 5 years. And so some things that Public Works had were for this year, some were for the next year and the year on beyond, like the lagoon or fixing the rock wall along the levee, the $10,000 for implementing the Parks and Trails Master Plan, and that's undefined what that particular project would be. And so I think we can look at those things, understand what the city's priorities are. I do think it might require another communication with the city manager or Shannon to understand what those are for the coming year. But I agree that I would like the where I understood Reservoir Park is, the last time the city manager presented that to the city commission, he said the city staff had not made a recommendation yet on how they wanted to proceed. I think we should ask that come up before the city commission again with the city staff's recommendation. Ours was very general based on the comments we saw. So we've got the money set aside thanks to the previous city commission last year. So we should be able to take some steps on that, and maybe Quentin can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's where that got left. A couple of other things aside from the HRDC are, we may need to look at reprinting those trails maps that we did in 2019. Those are, at least from our quantity from the city, are about depleted. So the question is, do we want to reprint those? Last time we did not get any city funding. We didn't ask for city funding for that. We raised that from Park County Environmental Council and 2 other funders, including Candida, which Tim represented, and Lori Kahn Foundation. So I would like to see that on the map. The other one is, regardless of what happens with the logo, and which we will talk about later, we still have parks and trails that don't have signs. And that, remember, was a big impetus for why we wanted a logo. But we have parks and trails that don't have signs. We also redid the Adopt a Trail program last year with the intent of putting those sponsoring groups' names on the trails or parks that they were helping to clean up as a sign of recognition. And we were hoping to put their name on with this new logo. So I still would like us to, and again, some funding came from the city commission for that last year. We spent $1,300 on the logo. That means we have $3,700 from the $5,000 that was specifically identified for signs and logo. So I would like to see us work with the city on putting up identifying signs on the priority areas that especially don't have signs, and or adopt a trail. So just a couple of other things I think we could be looking at.
Right, good.
I didn't realize, I kind of forgot that we had 5K allocated. We haven't spent it.
We spent
Is this taking it
1,300.
over?
Yeah, we spent 1,300 for the logo, but that left 3,700.
Does that roll over? Have we talked, because, talking to.
Yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't, according to the city manager, that was not going to be removed. Either was Reservoir Park. That's what the city commission allocated the money for. Quentin, I don't know if you have any corrections or any updates, but okay.
No, you're correct, Gene. Yeah. Yeah, that 5,000, that the CARES Act that was dedicated towards for logo development and use for signs and stuff like that. That money's still there. That hasn't been spent, so that's not going away. And yeah, we did designate 50,000 for Reservoir Park, and that still is there. That's
And I
not
know
going
some
away.
got- Yeah, and I know
It's in the
some got
budget.
spent for fencing that
Yeah.
he already did, I think around the tower or something, I don't know, but the bulk of that is there, so.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of coming up with an actual plan for Reservoir Park. It just hasn't been defined yet, as far as I
Right.
know. Taking the public comment and coming up with something, what we can do with 50,000. So
Yeah, or start.
yeah,
Yeah.
start with it. Yeah.
With Reservoir Park, are we tapping into whom to help us plan that? Like, can we, or have we, or are we relying on city staff to sort of do design, or would we use some of that money to contract out with somebody like TPL's program to help design it? So is that what have we, or what are the thoughts on using an outside source to help us with that? Because I'm
We-
planning on him.
Yeah, we have been lucky enough to have a landscape architect company volunteer. They've been willing to volunteer 80 hours each toward the project, which has been super awesome. It's one of the creating parks in towns is one of the projects that they really love. And so they are willing to help us out. And they've been really, really helpful. They've come to a couple of meetings. to present. They also made these great poster boards with different brainstorming ideas on project. What's it called? Like putting in a playground versus putting in like a natural playscape versus putting in a garden versus putting in a native species garden.
They were just like idea boards that.
Thank
they-
you, idea boards. I don't know
Yeah.
why I come up with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been super helpful and have come to a couple of meetings and went to farmers market with us last year to create public comment, and also went to Reservoir Park and did a walkthrough with us. And like, I can send those to you, Tim, so you can see them, but they like laid out very specific, like 4 or 5 different ways the park could look. Lots of posters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so they've been super helpful and they have created parks in quite a few different towns in Montana. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
I love the chasing down the Reservoir Park idea, and Gene, I love the signage idea, especially since we got money in the bank to be able to spend that budget and to get that further the signage project. The other thing I throw out there is I'm unclear of the timing on this, but I'm hopeful that this year, potentially this fall, there's going to be a vote on operations for the wellness center and whether or not there's going to be a Parks and Rec district. A part of that is still TBD, but if it turns out that there is a vote in November and there is a Parks and Rec district involved, it's going to take a big push by a lot of people to get that thing passed. And to the extent that we can take part in that as a committee or as individuals, I don't know what the rules are there, but it's going to take a push to get people to vote to tax themselves. But in the end, if they do, it's going to mean a lot for this committee and the opportunities to rapidly grow our ability to do work. So I would just put a star next to that. And with my work hat on, I know I will have a little bit more information after a meeting next week on how this might or might not be taking shape. So anyways, it's going to be a big deal if this lines up the way I hope it does.
Yeah.
Counting on you, Tim.
Huh? What's that?
Counting on you, Tim.
Yeah, I had some conversations and with also my work hat on with TPL, who we had engaged in the past, David, and we were a little delayed and late in getting a letter of technical support from the city in order for them to activate what they call their C4 arm, which allows them to come into our community and do polling and helping with ballot language and assisting really with the realities of what that campaign will look like so that the likelihood of it passing is quite successful. November, in our conversations, this November felt really short. But I don't know. I guess that is possible. I agree with you, Tim. It's going to be a real big, heavy lift. And if it was something that was on the horizon, then it would potentially take up 100% of our priorities and our time. So maybe, putting a realistic timeline, if that's a this year thing or a next year thing, would be the first step. And I guess engaging folks like TPL. And if the city is willing to do that. But I would say that would be a number one priority if it is on our horizon. Because, we can dream and we can vision and we've got a really great trails plan and a pretty comprehensive parks plan. But, over and over again, it's public works is stretched and figuring out the maintenance piece and the labor shortage piece might be another one of our priorities on how to get creative. Sheep. Sheep are really good at mowing.
Well, No Mow May also helps with the not mowing cause, and they are very supportive of that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in real quick on this. I've looked at this for a long time, of creating a separate, a Parks and Trails, a Parks District. And it's one of the things that Mr. Cardus and I first spoke of when we hired him. Exploring that and finding people tend to prioritize parks more than other things, and being a set aside, a standalone, and other ways to get funding and stuff like that, to me is very attractive. I come from a rather large city, but one of the greatest assets is its park district, which is autonomous from the city basically. And to me, it's one of the models in the country of how a park district should run. So I'm excited to see something like that move forward. Whether we can do that in this small of a community, I don't know, but it's something that's been in back of my mind for a long time. So just food for thought. I yield.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, this is all good conversation. I think where we'll go from here then, I think I love the idea of kind of what you offered up, Tim, and could be a good framework for how we discuss some of our priorities for the upcoming year. So I think following up on this meeting, I'll reach out to Shannon and see if what kind of priorities they have, or if there's any clarity they can offer, kind of similar to what we got last year from them, and then compile projects that we worked on this last year, what needs to spill over, and then we can have I'll put an email out for everybody to submit other ideas that you might have, just if there are projects on your radar, or whether that's something that you didn't see on the list or whatever it might be. So we'll kind of gather everything, and then I think it would probably be wise to have a separate meeting about this, but we'll talk about which route is best. But I mean, do most people feel like a special meeting for this would be appropriate, given that it is a pretty big discussion?
It depends on what's in the agenda. I don't know if it's going to be packed next month, but if it's not, then a regular meeting might suffice.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we can kind of keep an eye on the agenda then. If we need to call a special one, we can do that. This agenda was relatively light, all things considered. So if we have another one like this, we could probably put an hour dedicated to just conversation about this and move along. So, okay. I will make a note of this here real quick.
Is there anything that we could do, Connor, on our side to bring back to the next meeting? Should I'd be happy to look at the city strategic plan, although they're going to be going through an update. There's our internal strategic plan, or do you want us to all go away and think about those buckets and come back? Or is that is the framework kind of a next meeting discussion?
Yeah, I mean, if I would say, let's start with sort of the ideas, and then in terms of the strategic plan, is the city strategic plan of what aspect of the city, I guess, what are you thinking?
What aspect of the city strategic plan am I thinking?
Yeah, I guess like when you say they're updating the strategic plan, what exactly is that?
So the city goes through a process to update their own strategic plan. So things that are relevant to parks and trails would be wayfinding is one of the things that I can remember on there. A lot of it's active transportation, so it doesn't pertain to this committee, but there's some overlap. So it would be really looking at, since that strategic plan really dictates kind of city staff and what they're working on every year. it would help to know, what they're working on, and then if there's any overlap of our own priorities.
Yeah.
So
is
it's
that-
easier to recommendation if it's sitting within the city strategic plan, or it provides an opportunity for the committee to provide input into that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Quentin, that's kind of the general idea that I have of it.
Yeah, like, our strategic plan, still has pursue dedicated funding. And maintain parks and trail systems, the continual thing. And creating a policy for new parks versus cash in lieu of. That's all still, part of the strategic plan. Connect West Side developments. And like I said, create safe routes to schools. That's more active transportation and stuff like that. But we are going through an updating the strategic plan. It's a living document, something that we want to continually add to and put, completion years, hopefully, on it and stuff like that. So, yeah, you're right, Sarah. That's where we're at.
Does that get updated annually, Quentin? Or BD?
As needed, it's like, yeah, we really haven't come in. Trying to think the last time we met on strategic plan, just, standalone without a city commission meeting. It wasn't that long ago, but we are looking at it right now, seeking out people. We've got one person, two other community members to help update the strategic plan and go through the vision and mission statement and stuff like that. So we're looking to do that right now. So taking the application still.
Got it. Okay. We'll put the call out to all of our friends. Maybe that would be a good social media post for our new social media chief, Clay, who's not here. Okay, that's great to know. So yes, Sarah, that would be fantastic if you wanted to review that or be on top of that. Quentin, do you have like a timeline on when those changes would be made? Or is that pretty TBD? Okay.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Well,
but I will follow up on that tomorrow.
all right. Well, we can always take existing strategic plan items that we've been working with and make sure those are.
Yeah, and then tweak them. Just like, hey, but still, yeah, dedicated funding to me is the number one priority. And the year that's supposed to be completed is 2022, and I'm looking at the strategic plan right now. So for what it's worth.
All right. Well, we're excited to get dedicated funding at the end of the year, Quentin. Thank you. Great. Okay. Great. Yes. And then with our own strategic plan, I think definitely working pieces of that in. I think does everybody have a copy of our strategic plan?
I do not.
Or is it on the website? I can never seem to find the things on the website that people say are on the website. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but
Used to be there. I'm not sure if it passed the.
Yeah, it used to be. There's two different locations. One is when you generally look at the committee, but then there's another one for documents, important documents, and sometimes it's in there. So
sometimes, okay.
if it's
All right.
not, we can ask Faith to repost it.
Okay. So why don't I send out our strategic plan as well? And then, so everybody has it, whether that's a link or the document itself, so we can all review that, make sure that we're aligned. And then we'll grab a copy of the city strategic plan too, just in case, but not necessarily to read through as much as like a reference document Sarah, I will designate you as point person to, if there's anything you want to call out in your commentary or make the general committee aware of as reading through those, that'd be fantastic.
No problem. And Quentin went over the city strategic plan pretty much, so it'll be easy job. Thank
That was it. Those were the buckets related to our committee. Okay,
Right, yeah.
great.
pretty. I'll take a deeper look, but I think it's, yeah. I'll come back with those. Thanks for giving me homework. I asked for it.
You
Yeah,
did.
you
You
need that.
literally asked for it. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions or things about the priority process? Okay. Great. So the next item is our Trails and Active Transportation Plan recommendation. We've been talking a little, like I had a lot of emails going back and forth with Gene right after our last meeting, rolling into this one. And there were definitely some questions, and this is why I was hoping Matthew would be here, about like, should we be making a recommendation on a draft policy versus on a more finalized policy? It seemed like where things landed, the expectation from the city was that we would make a recommendation on the draft versus a final version of it, I guess. That said, if there are concerns about that or any discussion we want to have around that tonight, let's have that. Definitely happy to make a recommendation at a later date if there's enough, like if there are concerns about doing so right now and waiting to see a more finalized version after the story maps have been published and the consultants had a little bit more of their process following up on the release of the draft last month. So wanted to throw that out there. Gene, did I get all that right? I feel like
Yeah, I
me
think.
and Matthew were kind of emailing there for a while, so double check.
Yeah. My understanding from the last meeting was that they were going to present to us in January, which they did, the same as they presented to the planning board last week. And then each of our committees was then going to take a vote on whether we wanted to recommend that plan to the city commission. So that would be this meeting for us and the planning board's meeting in mid-March for them. The question then came up, I think Sarah raised it, about how do we do that, given that we don't know what the planning board questions might be. We don't know. The story map is just going out live. The story map is what the consultants were going to post so that the public could then comment on the Trails and Active Transportation Plan draft. That's just being drafted. And so that's going to happen. And then the steering committee was also going to meet and provide comments on the draft. So the question was, does our committee at least make a recommendation before we've understood what other comments or questions might come up from the planning board, the steering committee, or the public, and whether this was sort of premature to think we could make a recommendation on the draft at this point, like the first one's out of the chute. And my understanding from Matthew's email, and I think you probably have it there, Connor, I forwarded it to you. And I thought he was going to be on here to be able to explain it, but that we could wait, or we could do a general recommendation based on the draft and certainly amend our recommendation in the future. It's however we want to do it.
Being the person that asked that question and being a lot of moving parts, I appreciated the response that, and I agree, it's an awesome document. The consultants know our town probably better than most residents. The comments that they incorporate are really thoughtful. It's not, it won't be kind of just slapstick and get them in so they can get the project done. I have a lot of, trust and faith in the consultants that they are really relevant and they're integrated in a really practical way. So asking that question, and, Jean's response is that making a recommendation and a motion to move the draft to the next phase with the consideration that there might be some minor inputs, changes, and the steering committee will also review the document again. And that gives me a lot of confidence. I also think that if it goes to the city commission and there are still some things that are left hanging or questions that might arise from our committee, that there'll be an opportunity to provide that recommendation, and also as individuals in the story map and the survey. So I feel a lot more confident in providing a recommendation to move the plan to the next phase so that it is adopted sooner than later. Thanks.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I kind of agree that it would be good to give our preliminary support for the, I read the thing and I don't have anything to really compare it to, but it seems like a pretty darn comprehensive document to me. And we could offer our provisional support and have a sideboard saying something to the effect of, unless there's major changes, we would like to review it before giving our final endorsement. But if there's not, at this point, the sideboards that they put on the comments were pretty much like check for the I's that are dotted and the T's that are crossed, and it wasn't really anything comprehensive. So I can't imagine anyone coming in at this point making some wholesale changes that they would actually adopt into the plan. So it'd be good when this comes before the next set of decision makers to say, oh yeah, the Parks and Trails Committee enthusiastically supports this project as it was presented to them.
Cool.
I am super on board with what Tim and Sarah are saying. I mean, I think the consultants, they really got to know our community and spent a lot of time here, and were very thoughtful, and their presentation and document is, they both have been very thorough. And so many things that we've talked about over the years just keep getting reiterated. And so I'm really excited about the document. I walk and bike to work every day, and I feel like everything they are saying is exactly what this community needs. Yeah, I think we should just be on board and move forward and trust the consultants.
I just want to say I did have one sort of significant comment on the draft plan. As a member of the steering committee, I submitted my comments to Dawn on the whole thing. Most of it was minor, a few corrections. But there was a graph in there about the public feedback on the growth policy about transportation policy. And if you're interested, it's figure 2.4. The reason what I said about this to the contractor is, what he has done is split the responses between the most popular and the least popular. And they all have a number next to them based on how many people replied. It went from 1 not important to 4 very important. The last item under most popular is rated 3.01. And the first item under least popular is 2.97. So that's a 0.04 difference between those rankings, but they're put into 2 absolutely different categories of most popular and least popular. And it just happens that the top item under least popular at 2.97 is develop a community-wide interconnected trail system in town. I think that chart, the way it's broken down, is very misleading. I think it gives the wrong message about people's priorities. The better break, quite frankly, would be 2 down from there, where it goes from 2.96 to 2.77, because I don't want people thinking, wait a minute, people didn't want an interconnected trail system in this community, when in fact, it's very close in priority to the top 4 that were listed there. So that was my comment to Connor when he asked if there were any significant changes. That one, to me, is a big deal.
Did Don respond to that?
No, the problem was, he had said, just mark up the PDF, which I did. It's 40 megabytes.
Oh, gee.
So I loaded it up to my Dropbox account and then had to go through some extra stuff. And when I asked him if he had gotten access to my version with the edits, he's out of the office, so he won't be able to look at it till Friday.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay.
But I do think it's important for the committee to reinforce something like that, because it gets right to what we're saying matters to the public.
Well, Gene, I mean, I agree with you. I think that it is substantial and yet it's a somewhat minor change. And I wonder if, I don't know what other thoughts other folks have on other items that they may have found, but we could certainly offer our conditional support, but this particular thing needs to be corrected, because it's simply a correction in my mind. It's not even we're asking to add more or take away more. It's simply correcting a poorly put together chart that could impact decisions that are made in the future.
It is
Yeah.
just moving down the line.
Yeah,
know.
was there commentary around it about like these were, specifically this was an item that
Yeah.
was a priority thing too?
There was a little bit, which is why I'm concerned. I don't want people thinking the public wasn't supportive of an interconnected trail system in time. Now, again, this was responses to the growth policy, and it was broader discussion, but that's an important line item, I think.
Yeah, and we could definitely, I think Tim's right, like there's a totally fair work that into our recommendation or whatever we end up suggesting here, if that's something we want to do.
I'd like to weigh in as commissioner. Yeah, we're looking forward to you guys moving this forward to us. I did talk to Michael about it, Cardus, a little bit, and he said, some of the stuff went back to the contractor to get cleaned up. And I agree with Sarah, Tim, Allison. Let's move it forward and keep it going. I agree with all of you. Very, very well done, with the exception of what Gene has talked about. So thank you.
Great. Well, do we have any other comments or a recommendation for anybody?
Well, I'm happy to move that we indicate our very strong support for this preliminary document, knowing that there is additional comment coming in, and that we would like to highlight one figure that we think could be corrected to better reflect public view, which is figure 2.4.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Great. I guess, Allison, did you get that down? Okay. That was a lot of words. So we will take a vote. All in favor, or I guess all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all against? Great. That passes unanimously. I'm super excited about this. I think it's going to be a really big deal moving forward, and lays out so much amazing, an amazing picture for what this city could offer in terms of trails, active transportation, and just general improvements to the infrastructure. So great. The next item on the agenda is a woodlot update from Clay. He is our newly minted representative with the woodlot project. He volunteered for that. Not here, no update to share. I'll take on the NOMO May update.
Sorry, Connor, can I just
Oh.
ask a question, just as a matter of our committee's role in that, since it is school district property,
Mhm.
I mean, we're just keeping our eyes on it. We don't really have an influence or, I guess
No.
what is our jurisdiction on what rolls out as far as a project? Because I know there's a couple competing values and what the spot should be used for. So I just wondered, what is our influence, or do we have any say but just to keep eyes on it?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any influence that we offer. Rachel just flagged it to me after she left as like, hey, I used to sit in on these meetings. So if there's anybody else who wants to sit in and kind of keep the community updated on what's happening, that would be, great. So when I sent that email out asking if there's anybody interested, Clay volunteered to do so. Like if there's a role for us to play in the future, maybe, I don't know if there's anything that we can offer from an official city capacity. But, I think it's good to at least have a voice of the public, somebody who's on our committee, able to, be at those meetings and give feedback if there is anything. But again, I think that's a good distinction that there is no official capacity for us at this point in that.
Craig, I am curious, and I know Clay would have more information on this, but is there any alternative they're talking about that includes tearing down the 6-foot fence?
I
would
agree.
know.
It didn't used to have a fence, and we used to use that area a lot as kids, to kind of run through there, and it was quite neat to have this natural space in the urban setting, similar to the Girl Scouts, a little bit smaller, of course. There's, from my understanding, I don't know about the fence, but to use it as a science area, to restore it and keep planting new trees, and then on the other side is just to bulldoze it and potentially create a sports facility, training facility. Anyway, that's the little bit that I know.
One thing to remember too is we, as part of our comments on the growth policy from the Parks and Trails Committee, asked them to recognize in the growth policy that schools had green spaces that could be really important to the community. I mean, whether they had playground equipment or like this were wooded areas that the public could go to. They didn't do that. They didn't include those green spaces in the schools in their discussion of park areas or potential public spaces. So that's unfortunate, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't still try to bring this up as important park areas for the public.
I think this is an amazing little pocket park, and it's got such potential. And to the extent that they're asking for our input, I'd say we should weigh in and tell them what we think. I mean, it's an amazing little piece. I've always wanted to not have that fence there and have it be this cool little forested area, right in the middle of town. I mean, it's totally cool. And I mean, the stuff that they did wasn't bad last year. So anyways, maybe see if we could weigh in a little bit. I'll be interested to hear what Clay has to say. So.
Yeah.
I agree, Tim. I think if we have a consensus in the committee, especially if it aligns with the growth policy, that it'd be worth writing a letter and having some input there, because it really is special. The canopies and are all relatively the same age. So there might need to be some significant replanting of trees to maintain it to be a forested area, but I would agree with that. Thanks. Sorry, I won't take up any more time on this.
All right. Great. So then, NOAA May update. The great news is we delivered a report to the commission. The feedback was pretty good. The excitement was high. I made the request of the city, or asked the city / commission if this could be an ongoing or a program for 2022 as well, that we could start gathering support for. And Mike wrote back and said that yes, we could consider this an annual thing, this on moving forward. He said there was a lot of benefit to the city in terms of the ease of not mowing a lot of parks and spaces that would require a lot of mowing that time of year. So there was a lot of support there from kind of the city's leadership, which is super exciting. So I think that's going to be a fun program to continue to participate in or lead, and then evolve over time, I'm sure. I did also ask if there's any funding for further signage this year. He said there was nothing in the budget, but we could keep a conversation going. Like last year, Lisa Lowy used money out of some side budget thing. I'm not even sure what money it was, but she swung a couple $100 our way for some signage. And if we could do even like half that and just print more signs and another banner, like that would just, every year we can continue to save and grow these sign, hopefully grow. Don't blow away in the wind sign collections. So that was really exciting. That was really a good amount of support from the city on that one. So we'll consider that one a program that we can keep moving forward.
I'm going to weigh in on that just real quickly, just to let you know, the cemetery will not be part of it. There was got a lot of complaints about that. And there's the other thing was, I'm not sure where this came from, but the no mow May signs need to be picked up promptly. I don't know where that came from. I don't think it was from city staff. It was just a complaint that came from somewhere. But and then Public Works will mow some areas that are deemed flood areas, or some that are strategic to this, Public Works. So, but other than that, yeah, no, we're all in favor of it, with the exception of the cemetery.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, now then the logo update. And Quentin, to be fair, I did not watch the recording of the meeting or anything, but the logo, the city commission was voting on approval of our Parks and Trails logo. The city staff made a recommendation, not that they weren't going to endorse our logo selection, and then it was tabled at the commission and will be voted on at a later meeting. Quentin, happy to have you chime in here from the commission's perspective on kind of the process on there and where it goes from here.
Yeah, I will. Personally, I love the logo. I like the whole thing. Staff just brought up the fact that how do we tie it in with what the city has now to make it cohesive, and we're pretty much of the mind that we need to change the city's logo as well. There was support, talking about that. Our logo was very difficult to print, reproduce on shirts or anything like that. So it's something that we want to look more into, of trying to make something a little more cohesive. I love what Park County did maybe 4 or 5 years back, updated their logo, and it ties in with everything they do. And there wasn't any overwhelming objection to the logo and stuff like that, except how do we tie it in with the cities? And then I also brought up that the city I come from, again, the park district is quite a bit different from the city. But that's just one example out of hundreds. So that's something we'd like to, the commission would like to pursue further. So that's the reason we didn't make a move any further forward with that at this time. So the ball's kind of in our court at this, the commission's court for right now.
Okay.
So
Quentin,
Quentin, is that,
I do have a question. I did not, I went back and listened. I wasn't on the call, but I went back and looked at the recording. I didn't see a time frame in there for when the city might be looking at redoing the logo. And,
That's it. It was just brought up
Okay.
as an aside that that's something we need to look at. And the way I look at it, we need to prioritize it. So
Okay.
'cause I want to see the parks, the trails. I want to see the signage out there. I love the logo that that Eubanks came up with. I think it's wonderful, perfect. Maybe that's where the city needs to start is with them and go from there.
Yeah.
So-
yeah,
But yeah, I will push that. And-
Okay, thank you, Quinn. And just background, I mean, the way this came about is we were pushing for signs. And we wanted signs for Adopt a Trail. We wanted them for the parks and trails that didn't have them. We wanted wayfinding. And that's why we went to the commission. We advised Megan of the colors on the Sacagawea Park sign because that seemed to be the one Shannon was in favor of. At least that was our understanding. So that's why you see those rustic colors there. We looked at the downtown business or Livingston Business Improvement District. Chris King sent hers. And so we tried to have her consider all of that stuff. I think that Commissioner Lyons thought that the $5,000 that the commission gave us all went to the logo development. Perhaps you could clarify that's not the case. It was $1,300 of the $5,000 that went to the contract. We weren't aware the city was looking at redoing their whole logo, even though we had started this process a year ago, until probably August or September. We, as a committee, considered whether to pull back on the logo or to go forward, and the committee unanimously determined we needed to finish the process. We signed a contract with Eubank. Let's finish it and get her final design. And that's what we presented to the commission. So I think the question we have is, first of all, the timeline for, or at least I have, for the city's logo. I mean, how long does this get held up? For us to be able to use a logo on parks and trails? Because I pulled together a document with pictures of the variety of signs that we have in this community for parks and trails. It's all over the map as far as colors, sizes, language, font, text, all kinds of things. And so we were trying to look at some consistency within the signage with a logo. And that's really a large part of what drove this. So the question is, do we have to wait for the city to do their logo to have ours? It sounds like they want to do that first. But then the question is, can we figure out a way to move forward with some of the signs that still are needed even without a logo? Parks and Trails logo.
Yeah, personally, I think they can stand alone. I'd like to see them implemented now. So it's just a matter of talking to our other commissioners and saying, hey, we want to move this forward. And we've worked, we were directed to work on this. And now you're telling us to hold for what, to redesign the city logo. So force the city's hand into, hey, let's revisit the city's logo, but I still, I don't mind the separation. I don't think we have to wait for the city to come up with something that's, works hand in hand. I like the standalone. I like what we have here and just do it. So it's just a matter, let's work on the other commissioners, and I will call each one personally and say, hey, what do you think about moving on this and going from there?
Would it help if we said something to the commission, Quentin, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly. Well, let me think. Well, Tim, you were city commissioner. How would you look at it?
Well, I mean, I know that the last time the city redid its logo, it was at least a year, if not two.
Yeah.
And I mean, my pitch would be, you asked us to do this, we did it, and we kept in close communication, and now we're done with it. And from a branding standpoint, we're branding two different things. And it doesn't necessarily make sense that one needs to be similar to the other. And unless the tail's wagging the dog and the city decides to design its entire logo around our logo, then it's a pointless exercise. Because it doesn't matter, because the city's going to do, I can't imagine the city having a logo that's too far away from what we have right now, right? It's not like we're going to, and so it's like comparing apples to oranges, and in the end, like, what are we waiting for? Because it's not like we're going to go back and change this logo based on what the city comes up with, and it's not like the city is going to change this logo based on what we've come up with. So, like, I don't understand why I understand why they want to take a pause, but when you just sort of dig into it, it just makes no sense.
You want to be a commissioner again?
No, no, I'm retired from that.
Hey, you said it. I couldn't say it any better than what you just said. So
I'm happy to tell them that if it makes
I
sense,
want to
yeah.
push forward with what you guys have come up with. So, and I will work on that. I will endeavor upon that. So the ball's in my corner right now on that. Okay. Because you guys, as Parks and Trails, you unanimously approve this and put it forward. It's my time for me to do my work.
Thank you.
If I need you to make phone calls, I will.
All right. Any other comments on that? Okay. Great. All right, Jean, Bozeman Trail update.
And this is really more of an update, but if you remember, over a year ago, Patricia Grabo handed us a bunch of files about the Bozeman Trail. I subsequently approached Yellowstone Gateway Museum because we don't really have the capacity to hold on to files like that. We want them to be available to the public. And I asked Karen Reinhardt at the museum if they'd be interested in having these. We had to wait for Patricia to give her okay. She finally gave her okay last month. So those materials are at the Yellowstone Gateway Museum. It's a big stack. I went through them all. I tried to create some kind of list so we'd have it. But those materials are now at Yellowstone Gateway Museum with Patricia's blessing. The other thing that happened is in January, there was a program about Bozeman Trail at the Belgrade Library put on by, what's it called? Osher Lifelong Institute at MSU. I had asked them if this was going to be available via Zoom, and it wasn't. Everything was in person, and there's no recording of it. And so I asked Karen at the museum if they'd be interested in having a similar program. It was Osher and the Gallatin Museum. So they're looking at doing a program, just so you know, maybe this fall. This spring and summer is going to be a lot of stuff about the 150th anniversary of Yellowstone. So it can't happen till the fall. So they might be doing this same program. She was excited about the opportunity to partner with the Gallatin Museum. The other thing, the final thing is just that the Park County Fairgrounds and Parks Board was asking questions at its December, January meeting about the Bozeman Trail. They got a bunch of material from Jerry Brecky, who used to be with the Livingston Enterprise historian. That would be nice to see whatever document they have, but I think there's some interest in the trail. They're pulling back from that simply because they know the Bozeman Trail is mostly on private land. What
Right.
we looked at was trying to connect that private land section to a section through town and creating an 8-mile loop, if we could ever develop the trail. So there's some interest, but they're holding back because it's private land right now. So we may have an opportunity in the future. And maybe a program at the museum will help instigate that. That's
Good.
Cool. Any other comments on that, questions? Okay. Perfect. All right, so last item on the agenda was also for Clay, social and other media. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I did officially install Clay as our chief social media officer. So that's his official title. So he's now running that. So if there's any social media items that you want to have posted on Facebook, you can send those to Clay, and then he'll make sure those get posted. And I guess maybe put me on it too for right now for a little bit. But you can we'll make sure we'll get those to the city and language approved and posted. So
What
including.
if we posted our letter of support for the plan? Or a link to it or something. I don't know how that stuff works.
Certainly a possibility. Do we have like a formal, are we gonna have a formal letter of support? Or is it like, do we put that?
Yeah, we'd have to send it, if we're sending it to the commission, we have to have a formal email or statement that goes to Faith and Mike that they will forward to the commission.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes, we could put that somewhere. Okay. So we'll make a note of that. And then the other item we talked about was if we could put the vacancy or the citizen position for the strategic plan update, if that would help you out, Quentin. All right.
Yeah, put that out. I don't know how much of it is. I'm still kind of confused exactly what, well, how much of it's updated or it's a vision, mission, statement and stuff like they want to change the language and stuff like that. So let me look into that and see how narrow or how broad this committee's work is supposed to be. I'm still not sure. So I'll look into that.
Thank you.
But yeah, don't do anything with that yet.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Great. Well, any other final comments for today?
Connor, I just had a quick question. On an earlier email, you had thought that Lindy Gibson might be presenting or her request to the committee. And I'm wondering, this was the request about changing the sign at Sacagawea Park because it calls the lagoon the wrong name.
Mhm.
And she's on the Historic Preservation Commission. She talked to Matthew about it. Matthew sent her to us. Are we gonna be, is that something that'll be coming before us? Speaking of signs?
It is, yes. She was very sad that we had a Zoom meeting because she doesn't know how to use Zoom. So she said that she would
Oh.
she would join us for our in-person meeting next time we had one. So
Gotcha. Okay,
that was tabled for this month as she was not able to join us digitally.
gotcha. Okay.
So
I have a quick comment. Emmett and I are gonna fill out an application to adopt the Hopa Trail, but I was trying to figure out where I was having a hard time confirming if anyone had adopted the Hopa Trail.
No one has, and
Right.
the application is online.
I could find the application. I just couldn't find the,
Yeah, you know what? I will send Connor the list. I've sent it to city staff. So Shannon had it and Eric had it before Eric retired. I'll send it to Connor so he has it. The other thing I have to do is do a quick report on all the work these committees did over the year with some of their photos of the trash they picked up, how many volunteers they had. So just some good information so the commission can see how much work people are putting into these committees. It will include the list of the trails and parks that have been adopted. So
okay,
I'll pull that together and get it to Connor. But right now you should know that the Hopa Trail is not adopted. I know, Quentin, there was a lawsuit related to the Hopa Trail. Is there any reason that Hopa Trail can't be adopted?
First I heard of it. I'll check.
Okay.
okay. We will fill out our application and wait for
Right.
Quentin's recommendation.
Yeah, and I'll find this stuff out tomorrow.
Okay.
Best I can, and then I'll let Connor know and he can disseminate it. Which brings me to my comment. Great job, Connor. Thank you for heading this up, man. Awesome job. It's a pain in the butt, but thanks for doing it.
I spent a week with like 17 emails in my inbox, just like, I don't want to look at these right now. Then I finally waded through them and was like, all right, here we go. So yes, but it was all like this, the beginning stuff. This Gene was furiously handing things off to me. So I think I'm back up to speed a little bit more now. So
Good job.
Good job. Good job.
Good job.
yes, thank you, appreciate it. Also, Gene, thank you for, again, your years of doing this. Appreciate all of that time and excited that you are now just a committee member.
Me
Great.
too.
Woo
All right, well, if there's no other comments, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved, Carol.
All right,
I second.
No arguments there.
great, perfect. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time
Thank
tonight.
you.
Good night,
Good
guys.
night.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Thank you.
Right.